Hi, I'm Christian Barwin, I'm the car enthusiast, and today I want to help you install this Berger Motorsports intake on your E90 or F30 335i that has the N55 engine. So this is my 2011 335 xDrive. This is the only year that the E90 had the N55 engine, and there's not a whole lot of aftermarket support for this specific 1 year only N55 car, but luckily these intakes are pretty easy to make, and there's plenty of these out there. I went with this because it was the cheapest, honestly, and because it's pretty straightforward. I don't know that another intake is going to get you that much more performance gain over this one for the money, so I'm very happy with this one. I've already put the filter on the actual intake plastic piece right here, and this filter comes pre-oiled. So I bought this from ECS Tuning, and they just send them separate. So I went ahead and screwed this filter onto the actual plastic housing, and it just requires an 8mm socket, so that takes not much time at all. Make sure that this metal strip on the bottom and the actual clamp system on the bottom are actually on the bottom and not on the top, because you want it to look good and you want the Berger Motorsports part to read facing upwards or correctly whenever you're actually installing it in the engine bay. So that being said, let's just get to it. Okay, so obviously we're looking at the engine bay here, and we want to start off by just removing the actual plastic engine cover. Mine sits in there pretty loosely, so just take that off, move that to the side. So now you'll take this 6mm socket. I just have it on the end of a screwdriver. You can actually put it on a wrench if you want. And we're gonna go to this clamp right here. This first one, not the bottom one, but the top one, because this is what we're gonna, this pipe right here is, we're still connecting the Berger Motorsports intake to this. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this. Okay, so now that this is loose right here, as you can see, we're not actually removing the bottom section of this air box. We're just gonna replace the top section, which unclips with these 4 clips right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then as you're lifting, keep in mind that you're hooked up to the sensor still, which we're going to just transplant onto the other one without actually removing the sensor. Well, we're going to remove the sensor, sorry. We're not going to remove the plug that actually connects it to the wiring harness. So we're going to lift up and forward, or I guess this direction, towards the front of the car, because there's 2 little clips on the back here that slide into some slots on the rear side of this. This just slides right out, just like that, okay? So now we're going to move this to the side so that we can take our T20 screws and remove this sensor. And we will not be reusing these screws. We'll actually be using a Phillips head screw whenever we actually install this sensor on the new intake. But you do want to hold on to this just in case you want to revert this completely back to stock. Sorry, I'm not really showing you a lot of visibility. I'm trying to keep this thing from sliding around. Okay, I just unscrewed this. Make sure it doesn't fall into the engine bay. And this should just slide right out. Keep in mind that there's an O-ring in here, so you don't want to break that. There you go, right there, perfect. Now we're going to move this to the side where it won't touch anything and get harmed. And if the engine's still hot, you should probably wait until this cools down. So make sure that it doesn't touch anything hot if the engine is still hot. And you can remove the factory air filter. We won't be needing that anymore. So with the kit comes this bracket right here. This is BMS on it, and a little screw. And these will actually screw into the back side of, so you'll see the screw will come through here so that the BMS is facing the front of the car. And it will actually screw into the back side of the filter right here so that it'll sit into one of these slots and keep it in place and not move around while you're driving. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you'll want to leave it a little bit loose so that you have adjustability whenever you actually get the thing installed, and then you can just reach a screwdriver behind there afterwards and tighten it down to make sure that it's sitting properly. So very carefully now remove the screws from this place where the sensor is going to go inside and set these to the side. And now I'm going to transfer this over. And so you're going to make sure that there's an arrow right here on the sensor itself, and that tells you the direction of flow. So you want to make sure that this is going to go in this direction, so that way it follows the flow of air and it's measuring the air correctly. So it just presses in right there. Make sure you're not going to put too much pressure on that O-ring. And then get one of these screws and just go ahead and secure this not too tightly, but also with plenty of, make sure that it's sitting in there properly. So it appears that my camera died while I was installing this, but all I did was I put this in place, right? The first thing I did was actually slide this end into this, this tube right here and tighten that down to make sure it's snug. You may have to hold it at a weird angle to make sure that it actually sits properly in this. I had to do that, but it wasn't a big deal at all. I just tightened it down. And then once, this connector was already put in as you just saw, and I just took the wires back here just as they were from the factory. And then there's that metal bracket that I showed you earlier on the back of this intake. And right now I'm at the point where I can't really access this screw very well, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a wrench and an adapter so that I can put a Phillips head drill bit on the wrench and then reach back there and see if I can tighten it down. But it's feeling pretty snug right now, so I'm not too worried about it coming loose. So I just found a quarter size socket, a 1/4 inch socket, and I just put a drill bit in there, so that's my way of reaching back there. But note that this drill bit is loose, so be careful if you're doing this for yourself. And you can remove these plastic or these metal clips right here so that they're not just bouncing around all over the place whenever you're driving. Bend them down, get about 90-degree angle, and then it comes right out. So here we go. So now the last part of the process is really just as easy as putting this engine cover back on. If I could figure out a way for mine to actually go back on, that would be great. For whatever reason, this one has issues with me. Just like that, clips back into place, and we are good to go. All right, so it's all installed, and I love the way that this thing looks in here, especially paired with that Phoenix Racing charge pipe that sticks out further than the OEM one. It's a bit more obvious in there, so I really like it. I really like the way it looks, but I'm even more excited for the way that it'll feel, if there's any sort of difference, but also the way that it'll sound. I'm looking forward to the actual increase and kind of the whoosh from the turbo and all that stuff from this intake and charge pipe pairing. So I don't think that it'll sound good in here right now because my exhaust is pretty loud. You'll pretty much just hear that since we're in a garage. I'm gonna take it somewhere else. So here that is. So since I'm still here, obviously I haven't heard it yet. You're the first one to hear it. So hopefully it sounds great. I'm sure it does. But thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and have a great day. Also stay tuned for more content like this.